They thought they had the upper hand, that she was at their mercy. But they were wrong. In a suburban neighborhood, a group of men surrounded a lone black woman, their taunts growing louder, their intentions clear. To them, she was just another victim, outnumbered and defenseless. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. She stood calm, her eyes steady, her silence unnerving. They mistook it for fear, but it wasn't fear. It was control. Every move they made, every word they spoke, she was calculating, preparing. What they assumed was hesitation was the calm before a storm they could never predict. And in the next few moments, she would show them why underestimating her was the worst mistake they'd ever make. As we reflect on this real-life story, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more daily stories that need to be heard. Hit that subscribe button and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Jasmine Buron was only a few streets away from home. The sun had begun its descent, casting a soft orange glow over the quiet suburban neighborhood. It wasn't dark yet, but the evening air carried a certain stillness. She had just left a friend's house, her casual top and tight jeans reflecting the relaxed nature of her day. Jasmine wasn't in a rush. Her strides were calm and unhurried as she walked the familiar path, her mind occupied with plans for the evening ahead. To anyone passing by, she seemed like an ordinary woman heading home after a simple visit. But Jasmine Buron was anything but ordinary. Behind her composed exterior was a lifetime of rigorous discipline, resilience, and unmatched focus. As a Navy SEAL, she had faced high-stakes missions that demanded not just physical strength, but mental precision. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, never one to seek attention or invite conflict. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. A few houses lined the street, their windows glowing faintly as families settled in for the evening. A single car rolled past, its tires crunching on the asphalt, then disappeared around the corner. The stillness returned. It was then that she noticed them. 4 men leaned casually against the fence of an empty lot. At first, their presence seemed inconsequential. They appeared to be chatting, their laughter low and deliberate. But as Jasmine approached, their attention shifted, their postures changing ever so slightly. She felt their eyes on her, sharp and invasive. Their murmurs grew louder, their words suddenly clear and deliberate. "Well, look who's here," one of them called out, a smug grin spreading across his face. "You lost, sweetheart?" Jasmine didn't break her stride. Her face remained calm, her gaze steady, but her mind was already working. Years of training had sharpened her instincts, and she could feel the subtle shift in the air. The men began to move, stepping onto the sidewalk as they fanned out in front of her. Their actions were casual, almost nonchalant, but their intentions were unmistakable. They weren't just watching her, they were surrounding her. One of them smirked, his tone mocking as he added, "A pretty thing like you shouldn't be out here alone." Another laughed, his voice louder than it needed to be, as if to prove his dominance. To them, Jasmine was just another woman walking alone. They thought her casual clothes and calm demeanor meant she would be easy to intimidate. They assumed her silence was fear. But they were wrong. Jasmine didn't quicken her pace. She didn't change direction. She didn't respond to their taunts. What they saw as hesitation was something else entirely. Jasmine wasn't panicking. She was observing. She wasn't retreating. She was preparing. The men, emboldened by their numbers, began closing the distance, laughing as they fed off each other's bravado. They thought they controlled the situation. They thought they had her cornered. What they didn't realize was that Jasmine Buron had faced situations far more dangerous than this, and in a matter of moments, they would learn just how wrong they were. The group began to close in, their movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment. Their laughter echoed off the quiet street, laced with mockery. They were enjoying the idea of control, of making her feel small and out of place. One of them stepped forward, a man with a worn baseball cap tilted low over his eyes. His grin was wide, his tone dripping with condescension. "What's a lady like you doing out here alone? Don't you know this isn't your neighborhood?" Jasmine's expression remained neutral, her pace steady as she walked toward the space between them. Her calmness only seemed to provoke them further. Another voice cut in, louder, harsher. "You're a long way from home, aren't you? Maybe we ought to remind you how things work around here." Jasmine stopped. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. Instead, her eyes swept over the group in a single measured glance. She wasn't just looking at them, she was assessing them. The distance between each man, the weight of their stance, the nervous twitch in one of their hands. She saw it all. One of them, a taller man with a chain hanging from his pocket, smirked and stepped closer. He was trying to be intimidating, towering over her as he spoke. "You don't belong here, lady. Time to teach you a lesson." Jasmine tilted her head slightly, her voice low and controlled. "I'd suggest you rethink that." Her words hung in the air, calm yet firm, the kind of tone that demanded attention. For a moment, the man hesitated, his smirk faltering, but the others laughed, egging him on. They mistook her confidence for defiance, her calm for arrogance. The tension thickened as they moved closer, their circle tightening around her. To them she looked trapped, one woman against 4 men. They couldn't see the subtle shift in her posture, the way her hands relaxed at her sides, ready for action. One of them tried to grab her arm, his grip firm but clumsy. That was his first mistake. Before he could react, Jasmine twisted effortlessly, breaking his hold and stepping back into position. Her movements were precise, calculated. The man stumbled, caught off guard, as the others froze in confusion. "What the—" one of them muttered, his confidence shaken for the first time. Jasmine didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any threat she could have made. Another man lunged forward, his frustration spilling over into action. He swung wildly, expecting an easy target. Jasmine ducked, sidestepping with a fluidity that spoke of years of training. In one swift motion, she used his momentum against him, sending him off balance. The others hesitated now, their earlier bravado replaced with uncertainty. They had underestimated her, seen her as vulnerable, simply because she was alone. But now they were beginning to realize their mistake. The quiet street was no longer just a backdrop, it was a stage. And Jasmine Buron, with her years of discipline and focus, was about to show them who really controlled this moment. The situation intensified as the men closed in, their words turning sharper, their tone more aggressive. They assumed she was just another person who would freeze under pressure. Jasmine remained still, her expression unchanged, her breathing steady. To them, her calmness was strange, even frustrating. They didn't understand what they were dealing with, or who. One man stepped forward, his stance bold as he gestured to the others. "Let's show her who's in charge," he said, his voice loud enough to carry across the quiet street. Jasmine shifted slightly, her posture changing. It was subtle but deliberate. Years of training had taught her to anticipate movements, to read intentions before they were acted upon. She wasn't just waiting, she was preparing. As the first man reached out, trying to grab her arm, she reacted in a flash. With a quick twist of her body, she deflected his hand, stepping aside with precision. The man stumbled, caught off guard by her speed and technique. Another man moved in, trying to flank her. Jasmine turned to meet him, her movements fluid and controlled. She redirected his approach, using her strength and leverage to bring him off balance. He staggered back, clearly not expecting resistance. By now, the others were watching her closely, their earlier confidence beginning to waver. One of them muttered, "What's going on here? Who is this woman?" Unnoticed by the group, a bystander had paused a short distance away. Holding their phone, they began recording the scene, their curiosity piqued by the unfolding events. Meanwhile, Jasmine's focus never wavered. Her mind flashed briefly to her training, the hours spent mastering techniques, learning to remain composed under pressure, and understanding how to turn an opponent's aggression against them. Another man rushed toward her, swinging his arm in an attempt to grab her. Jasmine stepped aside and redirected his momentum, sending him tumbling to the ground. Each of her movements was precise, designed to de-escalate without unnecessary harm. During this incident, a bystander recording could be heard whispering into their phone, "This isn't what I expected. She's taking them down like it's nothing." The men regrouped, frustration evident in their body language. They weren't used to being challenged, especially not like this. One of them picked up a nearby object, clearly intending to use it to intimidate her further. Jasmine stood her ground. She didn't flinch, her gaze unwavering. As the man advanced, she stepped in quickly, disarming him with a calculated move that left him disoriented. The object clattered to the ground, and the bystander gasped audibly, their camera capturing the entire moment. Despite their growing hesitation, the remaining men pressed forward, their pride refusing to let them back down. Jasmine's movements were a blur of calculated strikes and evasions, each action neutralizing their attempts without excessive force. One by one, they found themselves on the ground, confused and outmatched. Jasmine stood among them, her composure intact, her message clear. The street fell silent, save for the faint sound of footsteps as the bystander walked away, still recording. The video would later circulate widely, sparking conversations about courage, preparedness, and standing strong in the face of adversity. For Jasmine, it wasn't about recognition. It was about control, proving that, even in the face of overwhelming odds, a calm mind and steady resolve could change everything. The gang leader, visibly frustrated and determined to reclaim control, stepped forward with a clenched jaw and tightened fists. His confidence, once evident in his swagger, had now turned into desperation. "Enough playing around," he barked, signaling his final attempt to assert dominance. He rushed toward Jasmine, his movements uncoordinated but fueled by pride and frustration. Jasmine remained calm, her focus razor-sharp. As he closed the distance, she moved decisively, redirecting his momentum with a calculated step. In one swift motion, she immobilized him, her movements efficient and controlled, demonstrating her mastery of technique and discipline. The leader groaned, his pride shattered as he found himself restrained and unable to continue. The rest of the group froze, their earlier bravado replaced by stunned silence. At that moment, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Law enforcement had arrived, responding to a call from a concerned resident. Officers exited their vehicles, their expressions a mix of confusion and caution as they assessed the scene. One officer turned to Jasmine, his tone measured. "What's going on here?" Jasmine released her hold on the gang leader and stood tall, her voice steady. "You'll want to speak with them. Their actions speak louder than words." Her calm demeanor and clarity left no doubt about her confidence in the truth of the situation. As the officers began addressing the group, a bystander approached, still holding their phone. "You should see this," they said, their voice filled with a mix of astonishment and admiration. "She handled it like she's done this 1,000 times." The officers began taking statements, piecing together the events of the evening. Meanwhile, the video captured by the bystander found its way online, quickly gaining traction and sparking widespread conversation about courage and resilience. In the days that followed, the video reached thousands, then millions, drawing attention to the courage displayed that evening. The story resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom applauded Jasmine's composure and skill in de-escalating a dangerous situation. The individuals involved faced legal consequences for their actions, with charges of harassment and other violations brought against them. Justice was swift, and the community expressed relief knowing that such behavior was being addressed. When asked about the incident, Jasmine remained humble, offering a simple statement. "Everyone deserves to feel safe. Sometimes standing firm is the only option." The video and Jasmine's story ignited important discussions about preparation, self-defense, and the power of discipline. It became a reminder that courage is not about aggression, but about maintaining control and doing what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. As the story faded from the headlines, Jasmine returned to her routine, carrying with her the quiet strength that had defined her for so many years. She left behind a powerful message. Strength isn't just physical. It's about knowing when and how to act in the face of adversity. This was more than just an isolated incident. It was a testament to resilience, discipline, and the importance of standing for what is right. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If stories like this inspire you to stand up for what's right, don't let this be the last one you hear. Hit that subscribe button, comment where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you and join us in shining a light on injustice, one story at a time. Together we can create conversations that matter and build a community that stands for change.